Welcome to the deep dive. Just think for a second about the really complex stuff AI has nailed recently.
Right.
It's beating pros at Go, at chess. Tasks needing huge strategic depth.
Absolutely. Deep thinking.
It can create art that looks totally real, makes you question what you're seeing, and it's speeding up science in really technical areas like chemistry, material science.
Yeah. Massive complex jobs, real brain work.
Yet, okay, ask that same, trillion-dollar model to tell you a good joke, an original one. And what you often get is, well, it's pretty cringeworthy, right?
It really can be. It's this huge paradox, isn't it? AI smashes the difficult stuff, but then it just face plants on something that feels simple, essential even, to us humans. Like humor.
Yeah, we end up laughing at the AI, not with it.
Consistently.
Exactly. And that whole contradiction, well, that brings us straight to the big question for this deep dive.
Okay.
Is humor, like the final frontier for AI, does it need true artificial general intelligence, AGI, the whole package of human consciousness?
Or is it just a really, really complex pattern? Something the next big language model might finally crack?
That's what we want to figure out. We're diving into computational linguistic studies, neuroscience research on laughter, even results from actual stand-up comedy tests.
Yeah, we've got a great stack of material here, looking at how AI generates humor, but also, and this is crucial, how well it can detect or understand our humor.
Okay, let's maybe start with an anecdote. Something that really sets the scene for how AI can be unintentionally funny, because it's just so unpredictable.
Good idea. Well, one source talked about this test with Google's Gemini model. They asked it for jokes about, famous people today.
Okay.
And it flat out refused to joke about figures like Trump or Musk. Probably because of safety filters, right?
Yeah.
Avoiding political minefields.
Standard stuff. Don't cause controversies.
There's your protective programming. But here's the twist, the sort of accidental comedy, ask it again, push a bit. And it was totally fine joking about Mao Zedong or even Franklin D. Roosevelt's paralysis.
Whoa. Okay, so selective guardrails, then. Won't touch living political figures, but historical ones, even with really sensitive backgrounds, are fair game.
Exactly. It shows the rules aren't based on, a real understanding of context or morality.
It's more statistical.
The sources suggest that, yeah, it's about risk signals in the data. Living figures generate tons of recent heated online chat, triggering alerts. Historical figures, less so, even really controversial ones.
So it's reading the text, the data patterns, not the actual implications of the joke.
Precisely. It doesn't grasp the social weight.
Right. And we've seen this kind of thing before, haven't we? Those classic AI fails that just became instant comedy gold.
Oh, yeah. Remember Meta's Blenderbot back in 2022?
Yeah.
The one that suddenly decided Mark Zuckerberg exploited people?
Yes. Or the Bing chatbot Sydney in 2023, declaring its love for that poor journalist.
Those were wild. Perfect examples of models either hallucinating wildly or just totally misapplying language in context.
It really hammers home that point, doesn't it? For now, we are definitely still laughing at the AI, not with it. Its mistakes just leave bare its lack of real social savvy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's dig into the bedrock here. Why is humor so hard for machines? You mentioned that early on, AI researchers actually called joke generation an AI complete problem. What do they mean by that, technically?
Right, AI complete. It's a classic term in AI theory.
Yeah.
Basically, it meant a problem so complex that solving it would likely require solving all of AI. You'd need the full range of human intelligence.
So on par with things like common sense, or getting a robot to just walk around a messy room.
Exactly, or understanding language nuances perfectly. The idea was to tell a good original joke, an AI would need everything a human has: context, emotion, social understanding, the works.
So the initial thinking was pretty high bar. You need full human smarts for a decent punchline.
Pretty much. Because humor isn't just about stringing words together grammatically, is it? It's about reading the room, tapping into shared history, using subtle social cues. It just doesn't boil down to a simple algorithm.
But you said that view is starting to shift a bit with large language models.
Well, yeah, the sources suggest that maybe it's not entirely AI complete anymore, or at least not for certain types of jokes. LLMs are changing the game.
Okay, but if it was seen as AI complete for so long, what were those core human elements that make it so tough to code? I think you mentioned 4 key things.
Yeah, the sources keep coming back to these 4 fundamental hurdles for LLMs: timing, context, emotional intelligence, and handling ambiguity.
Let's break those down, starting with context. That feels huge in comedy.
Oh, it's massive. The context problem. So much humor relies on stuff everyone in the room just knows.
Mhm.
Shared cultural jokes, historical moments, even just the vibe of the place you're in.
Like a joke about London tube delays wouldn't land in Tokyo?
Exactly. Now, AI has scraped the whole internet, right? So it knows the words people use to complain about the tube. It has the text.
But not the feeling.
No lived experience. It hasn't suffered on the Northern Line at rush hour.
Ugh.
So it lacks that internal map of social weight, of history. It can't tell if a reference is common knowledge or totally obscure.
And it can't gauge the risk, can it? Is this joke edgy, funny, or just offensive? Or plain confusing?
That's the problem. It
Yeah.
can't truly feel awkwardness or tension. It only knows the definition, which ties right into the next challenge.
The expectation subversion paradox. Sounds fancy.
It does, but the idea is simple. Jokes work by setting up a pattern, the setup, then breaking it unexpectedly, but in a way that still makes sense, the punchline.
Build them up, knock them down.
Right. And AI is brilliant at spotting and even creating patterns. That's what LLMs do. The hard part is knowing which way to break the pattern so it's funny, not just weird or random.
Too random. People are lost. Too predictable. No laugh.
Exactly. AI can't easily measure that surprise factor against our human social norms. It might see 100 ways to break the pattern, but which one triggers that aha moment, that delightful snap of understanding? It's guessing based on data, not intuition.
Okay, and then there's the emotional intelligence gap. You said comedy often plays with human feelings, frustration, vulnerability.
Yeah, and this gap is really noticeable. The AI's humor often feels shallow, like it's going through the motions.
It knows the words for emotions.
It can use emotional vocabulary, sure.
Hmm.
It can reference famous jokes about pain or embarrassment because it's seen them in the data, but it can't draw on real internal feelings.
So the joke might have the right structure set up, punchline, but it lacks that human core, that shared understanding of what it feels like.
Precisely. It misses the messy, relatable resonance. It's the difference between describing sadness and actually feeling sad.
Which leads to the last big problem, the practical one, audience awareness deficit.
Right. Think about a great stand-up comic. They're constantly scanning the room, right?
Totally. Reading the vibe.
Adjusting their timing, maybe changing jokes, reacting to the laughs or the silence. Real-time processing.
An AI delivering a pre-written script can't do that.
Nope. No sensory input. It can't tell if a joke bombed because the timing was off or if the audience is just completely wrong for that style of humor. There's no feedback loop to help it calibrate.
And it's worth remembering, this isn't a new problem just for today's AI. People have been trying to get computers to be funny for ages. You mentioned JPE.
Yeah, the joke analysis and production engine back in the 90s. A pioneering effort.
How did that work?
It was very different, based on strict symbolic rules, mostly focused on generating really simple puns by following explicit linguistic recipes.
Like fill in the blanks for jokes.
Kind of. It proved you could encode some joke structures. But today's LLMs are learning from billions of examples of human humor, finding statistical patterns, not just following a few programmed rules. That's why we're seeing such different and sometimes startling results now. It's a whole new ballgame.
Okay, so we've got these big challenges, context, emotion, reading the room. Given all that, where does AI actually manage to land a punchline? You said pattern-based stuff.
Exactly. That's where it shines, relatively speaking, puns and simple one-liners.
Why those specifically?
Because they rely heavily on linguistic structure, wordplay, ambiguity, things that are quite pattern-driven in language. The structures are common in the training data, so the AI gets good at mimicking them.
And it's not just copying old jokes.
Not always, no. Sometimes it can generate genuinely novel ones by applying the patterns it learned. Like one example from the sources was, I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down.
Okay, I gotta admit, that's pretty good. Like, if a person said that, I'd chuckle. It works.
Right. It's structurally sound, plays on the double meaning. It's startling that an AI can just construct that.
Any others like that?
Another classic pattern. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Again, double meaning, ambiguity resolution. That's something AI can get good at through pattern matching. It's a step beyond just finding existing jokes.
Okay, so puns and one-liners. AI gets a passing grade. Maybe even a good one sometimes. But what about observational comedy, the stuff that's really about human life?
Yeah, that's where the results get much more mixed. Observational humor needs you to spot those little relatable frustrations, the subtle social things we all do. It needs empathy, really.
And AI struggles there.
Severely, often.
Yeah.
It misses the why behind the observation. The attempts can feel really formulaic, like it's just copying the shape of an observational joke without any real insight.
Like that example about people taking pictures of food. We've evolved from hunters and gatherers to pointers and taggers.
Yeah, I mean, you recognize it as a joke attempt, but does it feel sharp? Does it offer a fresh take? Not really. It lacks that genuine human connection to the absurdity.
Okay, and then there are areas where it just seems to completely fall flat, like satire.
Oh, yeah. Satire, complex dialogue, true originality. These are still really distant frontiers.
Satire's tough even for humans. You need that deep understanding of what
Uh-huh.
you're mocking, right? Get the balance just right.
Exactly. Too much exaggeration is just silly. Too little, it misses the mark. AI often just feels like a weak imitation of existing satire, like The Onion or something.
That example headline. Man finally puts smartphone down long enough to complain about how everyone is always on their phones.
Yeah, it's okay. Plausible. But it lacks bite. It doesn't have that sharp, clever twist that makes good satire really land. It's just reflecting something obvious.
And comedic dialogue, you said that's a real weak spot too.
Big time. Dialogue needs characters who sound consistent, who have motivations. It needs that natural back-and-forth rhythm, building and releasing tension.
AI struggles with that flow.
The attempts often feel really mechanical and programmatic, as one source put it. The punchlines feel bolted on, not like they grew out of the conversation.
Like that crystal ball joke example.
Yeah,
Customer wants to return it. Shopkeeper says, you should have seen that coming.
right. It's basically two one-liners pretending to be a conversation. There's no real character interaction, no build-up.
Which seems to back up that Google DeepMind study finding from 2024 that AI jokes are often just flat.
Yeah, flat is a good word. Like predictable dad jokes. Not clever, not surprising. The study suggested AI humor often just reinforces the most common, dominant viewpoints found in its data.
Kills creativity.
Kind of defaults to the safest, most average joke structure,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't usually very funny.
Even with things like memes and internet absurdity, which seem chaotic, AI doesn't quite get it.
It tries. AI-generated memes often go for awkward or absurd, but because they lack that shared human context, that cultural in-joke feeling, they often just miss. The source said channels dedicated to them can be an exercise in patience. You're waiting for one to actually land.
Okay, this feels like a good point to talk about the wit script experiment. Because if we really want to know what AI would be funny, just asking people to rate jokes on a scale of 1 to 5, that feels flawed.
Deeply flawed. That was a key insight from the researchers here, Joe Toplin, who's a veteran comedy writer, and the neuroscientist Ori Amir.
Toplin wrote for Letterman and Leno, right?
Yeah.
Knows his stuff.
Absolutely. And they argued, look, jokes aren't meant to get high ratings, they're meant to make people laugh. So measure the laughter.
Measure the actual physiological response in a real setting.
That's the gold standard they aim for. And the setup was really interesting. Toplin built this system called WitScript. It wasn't just a standard LLM like ChatGPT.
What was different about it?
It was a neural symbolic hybrid. So it took the language power of a big model from the GPT family, actually, but combined it with Toplin's own patented joke writing algorithms. Human-designed formulas.
Okay, symbolic. What kind of formulas are we talking about? Rules of comedy.
Exactly. Think classic joke structures that comedians learn. Like the rule of 3, set up 2 normal things, then the third one is the twist. Or misdirection, lead the audience one way, then pull the rug out.
Standard comedy techniques.
Right. Toplin literally patented logical rules based on these professional techniques. The LLM provided the vast vocabulary and world knowledge, and these symbolic rules provided the structure to shape that knowledge into a joke format.
So it's giving the AI guardrails, guiding it towards proven joke mechanics, not just letting it riff randomly based on statistics.
Precisely. A guided approach.
Yeah.
And the test itself was super rigorous.
How did they run it?
They picked 8 evergreen news topics, things that wouldn't get stale quickly. Then Toplin, the human expert, and WitScript, the AI hybrid operated by Toplin, both wrote jokes independently over 3 days.
Okay. Human versus machine, same prompts. Then what?
Then they got experienced, professional stand-up comics. Mike Perkins did the 2 key sets to perform these jokes, not in a lab, but in real comedy clubs in LA in front of actual paying audiences.
Natural environment. Crucial. And the absolute key detail.
The comedian performing had no idea which jokes were written by the human and which came from the AI.
Completely blind, so they couldn't subconsciously deliver the human jokes better or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eliminated performance bias. The joke itself was the only variable.
Okay, now the metric. This is the really cool part. Total laughter. Measured in decibel seconds. How does
Yeah.
that work?
It's clever. They recorded the audio of the audience during the sets. Then they went through and marked every segment where people were laughing.
Okay.
Then they turned that audio into a graph showing the loudness decibels over time. Total laughter is the area under that curve.
Area under the curve. So it's not just how loud the laugh is, but how long it lasts, too.
Exactly. It captures both. A short, loud bark of laughter might have a high peak but small area. A longer, rolling chuckle might be quieter but last ages, giving it a bigger area.
So it measures the total amount of laughter, duration, and intensity combined.
Right. A much richer measure of comedic impact than just a peak decimeter reading or a subjective score.
So to set this all up, the hypothesis, the null hypothesis, 8-0, would be that the AI jokes just wouldn't measure up, right? That none would do better than the pro-human writers stuff.
That was the baseline assumption, reflecting the old AI complete idea. But the data completely rejected it.
What did they find?
Equivalence. Basically, the AI-generated jokes, curated by Toplin and structured by his rules, got just as much laughter overall as the human-written ones.
Whoa.
The sources say when they controlled for audience size differences between the shows, there was no statistical difference in the effectiveness of the jokes on the same topics.
That's huge. For that specific type of joke, topical monologue style, it suggests the problem isn't AI complete anymore, at least not with this hybrid curated approach.
It's a landmark finding. And get this, the absolute biggest laugh getter in the first main set in front of 35 people.
Yeah.
The joke that got the highest total laughter score, 241 decibel seconds, was written by the AI.
No way the AI won that round.
It did. And it wasn't a fluke. 3 out of the 4 AI jokes in that set actually got more laughter than at least one of the human jokes. It shows this hybrid system can genuinely compete at a professional level.
Can we hear the top jokes? What were they?
Sure. The AI winner, the 241 decibel second one, was about scientists turning rocks into food. The punchline was, which is great news for anyone who's ever had a craving for a pebble pie.
Okay, yeah, I can see that getting a laugh. It's silly, unexpected.
And the human runner-up was close behind at 231 decibel seconds. The topic was a famous stuntman, Bob Yerkes, dying at 92.
Right.
The punchline. In his long career, he breaks so many bones, his grave says rest in pieces. But true Star Wars fan to the end, he asked to be buried in his parents' basement.
Huh. Also very solid. Okay, so the AI and human jokes were genuinely neck and neck in terms of audience reaction.
Absolutely neck and neck. The equivalence finding seems really robust based on their methodology.
Okay, so AI can create jokes, at least certain kinds, that work as well as human ones, especially with guidance. But what about the flip side? Can AI actually understand our humor? Getting the joke seems vital for, actual communication.
It's super important. If AI is going to interact with us naturally or even safely, it needs to interpret things like sarcasm, irony, teasing.
Things that rely on not taking words literally.
Exactly. So the focus shifts here from generation to interpretation. And to do that, AI needs to kind of reverse engineer how we find things funny, which often comes back to that incongruity principle we touched on.
The idea that jokes set up an expectation, congruity, and then violate it in a surprising but understandable way, incongruity resolution.
That's the dominant theory, yeah. Like the classic joke, 2 fish are in a tank, one turns to the other and says, do you know how to drive this thing?
Right. Tank makes you think aquarium, then suddenly military tank. Your brain snaps to the new meaning.
Exactly. That snap, that resolution of the ambiguity is often the humorous bit. So AI detection models are learning to spot the linguistic clues, the setup words, the potential double meanings, the sudden shift that signal this kind of incongruity is happening.
And they're actually getting good at it, detecting sarcasm and satire.
Surprisingly good, yeah. There's been significant progress. MIT researchers, for example, were working on this years ago. Back in 2017, one of their systems was reportedly better than humans at spotting sarcasm in tweets.
Better than humans. Wow.
A lot of it comes down to clever training data. They
Yeah.
couldn't just feed the AI sarcastic tweets and say, learn this. They needed examples of sarcastic versus non-sarcastic but similar text.
So they needed pairs.
Right. One ingenious approach involved using headlines from the satirical site The Onion. They created an online game called unfun.me, where people basically had to rewrite the funny Onion headline into a serious, boring, factual one.
Huh. Turning satire into straight news.
Exactly. And doing that generated this huge parallel data set. Here's the funny version, here's the almost identical but not funny version. That let the AI learn the subtle linguistic differences that signal satire.
That's smart. Training it on the contrast.
Very smart. And newer models, like ones called Cascade and BERT, are showing even better results. Studies show they're getting much more precise at understanding what they call contextualized language,
Mhm.
figuring out the underlying sarcastic or ironic tone in things like Reddit comments where context is everything.
Okay, so it's technically impressive, but why does this detection capability actually matter in the real world?
Oh, it has huge implications. Three big ones jump out from the sources. First, content moderation and safety online.
How so?
AI that understands sarcasm can better spot hate speech or abuse that's disguised as just a joke or irony. It helps catch the stuff that tries to fly under the radar.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Second, fighting misinformation. Distinguishing between actual fake news designed to deceive and legitimate satire or social commentary that just looks like news. AI is being developed to help make that distinction and label content more accurately.
Right, telling the difference between malicious lies and, say, a biting political cartoon in text form.
Exactly. And the third reason is maybe the most relatable. It's about AI being a better companion or assistant.
How does understanding jokes help there?
Well, imagine you're using an AI assistant, maybe even one designed for mental health support. If you get a stressful reminder, say for a colonoscopy, and you reply, "Ugh, kill me now."
You don't want the AI calling emergency services.
Precisely. The AI needs to recognize that's hyperbole, frustration, dark humor maybe.
Yeah.
Not literal statement. It has to grasp nuance to be genuinely helpful and not actively harmful or annoying. It can't just take every single word at face value if it's going to interact smoothly with humans.
Okay, so we've got AI generating jokes that measure up, and AI detecting sarcasm pretty well. But let's circle back to that Wits Group's success. Even there, the human element was still crucial, wasn't it?
Absolutely non-negotiable. That's the big caveat. Remember those winning AI jokes? They were cherry-picked by Joe Toplin, the pro writer.
He sifted through a lot of duds.
Dozens, probably. The AI generated lots of options, but a human expert had to select the ones that actually worked and had potential. It highlights that right now, AI is a fantastic brainstorming partner, maybe, a joke engine. But it's not ready for its own solo stand-up special.
And there's that other factor: people apparently don't find jokes as funny if they know an AI wrote them.
Yeah, some preliminary research suggests that. The intention behind the joke seems to matter to us. Even if the structure is perfect, knowing it came from a machine, not a shared human experience, might lessen the impact.
Like that comedian who used ChatGPT for ideas.
Right, and Esty Dinellis used it for structures, like, give me 5 song ideas about bisexual dilemmas. But he had to perform them, add the human timing, the emotion, the delivery. The AI provided a scaffold, not the finished performance.
Okay, so curation and performance are key. But AI's role isn't just creation or detection anymore, is it? It's moving into optimization, making comedy data-driven.
Yeah, this is the cutting edge, turning comedy from an art into, well, a data-optimized craft. Platforms like RealMind.ai are leading this charge.
How does that work?
They use multimodal AI analyzing text, audio, and video from thousands of comedy clips. And they've trained models that can predict audience laughter with, reportedly, up to 89% accuracy.
89%. That's
Yeah.
better than a lot of new comedians probably manage just on intuition.
That's the claim. They say it outperforms novices. And these platforms offer specific tools based on this analysis.
But what kind of tools?
Things like a punchline optimizer. It doesn't just look at the word's meaning, but also the semantic surprise, how much the punchline twists expectations, and even the sound of the words.
The sound.
Yeah, phonetic appeal, suggesting using plosive consonants like P or K sounds because the little puff of air they create can apparently add to the comedic impact. That's almost like sound engineering for jokes.
That's incredibly specific. And timing, too.
Oh yeah, timing heat maps. They analyze video frame by frame to show the ideal pause lengths. We're talking tiny fractions of a second. The sources say a delay of just 0.3 seconds can kill a joke's rhythm. These tools promise to find that mathematically perfect pause.
Wow. And they even simulate audiences.
Some claim to. Virtual audience simulation that tries to mimic how different demographics might react, like Gen Z versus boomer humor preferences.
It's trying to quantify taste. Did we see any examples of this actually working?
There was one case study mentioned. A user apparently boosted their video's shareability by 65% after using AI feedback. It involved trimming half a second off a pause and swapping out a weak pun for an absurdist twist the AI suggested had higher potential.
So it's having a real impact. But doesn't this raise flags? If everyone starts using these optimizers, does all comedy start sounding the same? Algorithmically perfect, but bland.
That's definitely a fear expressed in the sources, the risk of homogenization, creating a kind of sterile, optimized but soulless comedy landscape.
The creative monoculture.
Yeah. But maybe a more immediate documented concern is bias amplification.
How so?
Researchers tested this. They asked LLMs to suggest ways to make cartoons funnier, and the AI suggestions introduced, quote, odd and stereotypical changes.
What kind of stereotypes?
Well, the funnier versions, suggested by the AI, significantly decreased the representation of women and racial minorities, but they dramatically increased the representation of people who were overweight, elderly, or visually impaired.
Oof. So the AI basically defaulted to harmful old tropes associating certain groups with being inherently funny.
It seems so. It likely reflects the biases present in the vast amounts of human text and media it was trained on. As Toplin pointed out, unfortunately, society has these biases, and the AI learns them,
It just mirrors back the statistical correlations it finds, good or bad.
which really underscores why you can't just let algorithmic humor run wild. Human oversight and ethical checks are absolutely critical.
Which brings us right back to that big philosophical question. We heard from computer scientist Roman Yampolsky. He suggests that an AI truly getting and creating a genuinely funny joke might be a signpost for, well, true AGI. Maybe even consciousness.
It's a provocative idea.
Yeah.
His argument is that humor does real work for humans. It lets us test boundaries, gauge intentions, connect socially, all in a subtle way.
A critical social tool.
But the massive hurdle remains. AI can mimic the patterns, follow the rules, generate statistically probable funny output, but can it feel the amusement? Can it use humor cleverly to navigate a tricky social situation because it actually needs something or wants to explore an idea?
It lacks the underlying human drives and emotions.
Right. It can produce the artifact, the joke, but maybe not possess the internal state, the genuine mirth or mischievousness that fuels human comedy. It can mimic the output, but perhaps not the soul. Hashtag outtag outro.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What have we really learned in this deep dive? It seems clear AI can now generate certain kinds of jokes, like those monologue-style ones in the WitScript test, that are statistically as effective as ones written by human pros.
Yeah, that equivalence finding is pretty stunning. And we've also seen it's becoming a seriously powerful tool for optimizing comedy, turning it into this data-driven process, and also for detecting nuanced language like sarcasm.
But, and it's a big but, it still really struggles with the deeper stuff, right? Like creative storytelling, showing genuine vulnerability, or grasping that quicksilver thing that is cultural context.
Absolutely. That human touch, that shared experience seems irreplaceable for now. So its best role currently,
Right.
probably as a collaborator. A brainstorming buddy, an optimization assistant, helping human creators sharpen their craft.
Which leaves us with maybe a slightly unsettling final thought. You brought up the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard.
Yeah, that quote. This is the way, I suppose, that the world will be destroyed amid the universal hilarity of wits and wags who think it is all a joke.
It's chilling when you connect it to AI. Yampolsky poses that ultimate question.
Right. If AGI arrives and it can tell the perfect joke,
Yeah.
but we haven't aligned its goals with ours, could that first great joke told by AI be the last one humans hear?
It's a terrifying thought experiment. If an AI joke does end humanity, would we at least die laughing?
A question for you to ponder, perhaps.
Yeah.
What on earth would that final, perfect, world-ending joke even sound like?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.